Hello, so this is the Wargames Illustrated room at Britcon 2024. We've got 3 games in here today. They're all games of Valour and Fortitude. Tomorrow we're doing Never Mind the Bill Hooks, but today it's all about Valour and Fortitude, which was written by this fella here. This is Jervis Johnson.
Hi.
Hello, Jerv.
Hi.
So you're focused really on this one game that we've got in the middle of the room. So it's all lovely looking Perry miniatures for one thing, but what's the battle?
This is a hypothetical battle set in 1801 in Egypt, near Cairo, with the Ottomans defending against the French, with British allies coming on to help the Ottomans out, basically.
Okay, right, so there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. It's the first trial for the Ottoman army sheet. So this is a bit of a playtest game as well. We're going to see how well the Ottomans can do. Okay. This is the first time they've ever been on the Wargames table. So
oh, right, okay. So
very exciting stuff.
Right, okay, and we'll have some nice close-up views of those Ottomans in a minute and talk a bit about the Perrys about them. So, as you pointed out there, Valour and Fortitude is all about army sheets, isn't it? That's how the game's sort of been expanded since we first gave it away with Wargames Illustrated. It's right. Now available to download for free from the Perry Miniatures website, but you keep adding to it, don't you? So we started in the Napoleonic era, and of course this game's Napoleonic, but we've gone into American Civil War, American War of Independence, and all sorts of things. And that can be done simply by adding army sheets.
That's right. So the idea is that the rules fit onto 4 pages of A4, slightly longer if you want to make them a larger font size, but basically they fit into a small amount of space. And then you get an army sheet which fits onto 1 piece of paper. So you get the profiles for the units on the front, special rules on the back, so you've got everything you need for those. And the army sheets are deliberately designed to make it easy for us to add new armies in. So we pick out different periods and then start to try to figure out what was different about the battles fought in that particular war, and then use the special rules on the army sheet to reflect the different tactics that we used. Okay. It's been a great process so far. We've been really enjoying it. Challenging sometimes, you know. But we've got some people, there's a gamers group on Facebook called the Valour and Fortitude Gamers Group, and there are people there working on other army sheets for different periods. We've got some people here who've come up with army sheets with a little bit of help from me for the Indian Mutiny, somebody working on some English Civil War army sheets, which is a new one, just started on those, so it's very interesting. So we're hoping to be able to stretch the rules to cover as many periods as possible. Really.
And how far do you think it can stretch?
Well, I think that the one I'm really looking forward to trying to do is is kind of medieval battles and stuff like that, which I think will work okay. And if that works, then it could go back to ancient times. But I think the basics of battle from really the pharaohs through to the 19th century really were, you formed up in lines, you formed up in columns, you threw things at people or shot things at people, and you might have artillery around. So the basics stay the same, but I think one of the fun bits of this project is that we get to experiment with that and see will it work. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. We can just do a different set of rules for that period.
Yeah, very good. Okay, right. So who are you commanding today?
So I'm in command of the French right wing.
Okay, right.
My friend Ian is in charge of the left wing. I think we've got Alan in charge of the Ottomans, Rick and Michael in charge of the Brits.
Very good, okay. Right, well, you better get back to it then, because they're on the attack.
They are.
All right, thanks very much.
Right, bye-bye.
Hello, so we've just been talking to Jervis about Valour and Fortitude and the game that we've got in front of us here, and the best thing about this game is the lovely miniatures on the table.
Thank you.
And I think you've got something to do with them.
What?
Oh, good.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I think the train's nicer.
You think the train?
Terrain.
Oh, the train, yeah. Oh, did you make the train?
Most of it.
Yeah, it's very nice. It's very light. I like
it, isn't
that.
It? Yeah.
But no, let's talk about the figures for a bit. So, is this the first time the Ottomans have been out?
Yes.
Jervis saying? Okay,
They
so
are.
it's the first time they've been used in anger.
Yeah, I've only got a small force at the moment, so they're backed up with British. This is really towards the end of the war, end of the campaign in Egypt. where Cairo was encircled by the Turks or Ottomans and the British.
Okay.
Really, in reality, the French just gave up at that point, but we're doing a last charge for the French, basically, to try and sort of push them back.
What if? Yes, okay, right, very good. So it must have been a lot of fun making Ottomans, because they're quite different, aren't they, from the regimented red and blue lines of the British and French. Yeah. So fun designing them as well as painting them?
Yes, yeah, very much really fun. I mean, because there's not a lot of equipment on them, apart from pistols and swords and everything. Yeah. There's no backpacks or belts and things. Right. They're really nice to make and really nice to paint, actually, because you sort of haven't got all that additional stuff on them. Yeah. So it's mostly cloth, and if you like painting cloth, it's great.
Yeah.
I like making cloth and painting.
Oh, you like making it?
And painting it,
yeah. And coloured cloth as well, particularly, yeah.
And it's quite a lovely range to do, because you can, so many odd things you wouldn't normally put on a figure.
Yeah, okay. And have you done with it now? Are you still working on that?
No, it's still carry on. There's more guns arriving soon, hopefully. And there's loads more troops I need to make for it.
Yeah, okay, good, right. Is there any more troops you need to make for Napoleonic French and British, or is that done?
No, yeah, it always is, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Right. So it's never ending.
It's never ending, yeah.
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Apart
from being here playing the game today and advertising Valour Fortitude.
Just finished the Bavarian in plastic for the Franco-Prussian War.
Yeah.
So they've gone off to be tooled and working on artwork for the back of the box. And then there's metals for cuirasses and French cuirasses and lancers.
The Franco-Prussian War again?
Yeah, Franco-Prussian War, yeah.
Okay, right.
That's on the go, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And Franco-Prussian War army lists for Valour Fortitude are available from the Perry Miniatures website to download, but they're also going to be in the compendium that we're giving away free with the October issue of Wargames Illustrated. That's all a nice, lovely tie-in. So what are you commanding, what forces are you commanding today?
I've got the Ottomans because it's the first time, say, they're out on the table, so I thought...
So you don't want anyone else touching them?
I don't want anybody touching them.
No,
no I don't.
I'm British with Rick, although Rick doesn't, most of the time he doesn't know if he's fighting the British or the French.
Okay.
At the beginning of the game, he wasn't sure who he was fighting.
Well, there have been generals like that in the past, so that's nice for him to add that sort of crazy element. Okay.
I think he knows now.
Okay, good, right.
And I say Jervis and Ian are playing the French.
Right, okay, good. So, right, we better get back to it then, but thanks very much for telling us about it. Cheers. Right, moving on to another table in the Wargames Illustrated room at Britcon 2024. We've got the Boondock Sayntes with this lovely masterpiece, and it's an award-winning game, isn't it? Because it did win the award from Partisan.
Yes.
Which is one of the reasons we wrote you in.
Yeah.
And before, when you were playing this game at Partisan, you didn't know anything about Valour Fortitude. You weren't playing the rules,
That's right, yeah.
But we forced you into it to be part of our Valour Fortitude room. How have you got on with the rules?
Surprisingly well. On the first read, I thought sort of black powder light, and then when we picked them apart and put our lists together, in fact, it really suits conflicts in India very, very well. I mean, not just mutiny. I'm talking earlier, 1780s right up to including Anglo-Sikh wars.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad it's working out. Yeah, and he's putting some army lists together that are going to go into Wargames Illustrated for this period as well. So, but beyond the rules, we've got a fantastic looking table which is full of interesting things all across the whole board. Just tell us a bit about the battle that we're representing here, though. 'Cause it's not a particularly well-known one, is it?
No, not at all. It's a kind of a link battle, really. So it's a trilogy of games. The first game was the relief of Cornwall, and then Wheeler has to break through to Lucknow to relieve Lucknow. And and he had a series of actions, blocking actions, to get over with very limited resources. And there wasn't the option to outflank these mutineer blocking positions because they were well chosen. So he's often had to batter right the way through, and that's what's going on here. So this is a kind of an example of the blocking actions that took place. This particular one at Unao was a non-walled mercantile town with villages interim and the river crossing at the other end. So lots of challenges for him and his finite resources to get through, and the rules make that happen, really.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So let's focus in on some parts of the table, particularly. Obviously, we've got the town over here, which is, I don't know, there must be 20 odd buildings here, isn't there?
I haven't counted them. Yes. It's a bit of an obsession. I've got plenty of them at home, so I can rack down what I think would suit mercantile, or what would suit fort, or what would suit something else.
Yeah.
So these 6 crates represent what I thought would do nicely for this. They do kind of look okay, I think. They look quite nice.
Yeah, they look great. Where have they collected from? Are these commercially available? Are they scratch built? Or?
No. I mean, they're not. It's not all my own work. I mean, I tend to take MDF skins and then Indianify them with arches, pull them around a little bit based on some Haveli I was messing around in Fatapa. And then the landmark, they're not milestones, they're cost stones, but they're these weird doorless towers are fascinating, and they're all along the main trunk road, so they had to be here. And that's I think it was a lighthouse once upon a time, so that's been messed around with. This was an old MBA Eastern sort of Uzbek mosque, but it's lent itself nicely to some 3D print bits. And this is MDF again recast to make that. And a lot of these are old cobblestone buildings. They're out of production right now, which are North African, but they're quite easy to make Indian. I think these are Nick Huxley ones as well that I picked. Well, he made me an offer I couldn't refuse. Right. I took those. The other ones are Templars. So there is a mix of scratch, more like this one down here, and reimaginings of old Templar buildings and anything really that works. So a good blend, and I think that's old Snapdragon Mexicana made over with some extra stuff.
Right. Wow, it really is a potpourri, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Different things. And of course we've got these almost like vignettes really as well with different things going on. Is that something that you've put together yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I think these are 2 old foundry elephants that I've had knocking about for ages. And I'm using 1840s watercolours to get the look of the baggage, so that's basically what that looks like.
You're using what, 1840s watercolours?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, right.
Well, there was I think it was a lieutenant with the Madras company that particularly, I think there were a set of about 60 of the company army on the march.
Right.
And so it's just full of all this kind of nonsense here. And but that kind of also spills over into all the baggage and the civilians as well. So
that's where you're getting your inspiration from.
Amongst many, and the period watercolours from largely 1840s, sometimes later, or holiday snaps sometimes.
Oh right. So you've been there and done your own research on the ground, have you?
Well, I'm sure my wife didn't call it research, but but I've lost count how many forts I've tramped around. Right. But the towns are as interesting, to be honest, because the forts fought very often, and I just love all the wackiness layering of the animal ecosystem. Cats and monkeys on the first floor, dogs on the first, leopards eating the dogs. But also the look of it, the mould, I think, and the faded colours and the blue Brahmin centres, all this kind of stuff. Sorry, I'm rambling, but I just like the things Indian, you know.
Yes, and it does look great. It makes for a great spectacle. Just tell us a bit about the far end of the table, away from us. We've got the pontoon bridge, haven't we, there? Yeah,
the pontoon. This now is starting to look almost exclusively now at Colin Hodgson's work. The Gat, which is just stunning, he's scratch built that from basically nothing. He's a magician, really. The bridge, much the same. We've got some Grand Manor boats. You can see he's dragooned a couple of my more colourful fishing boats in there to make that happen. And the fort, I think, featured another game, but he's now dropped it on its own base, so it doesn't look quite like it's on something. The Grand Manor boat I've stretched and messed about with, and the other ships, the fire boats around the side here. I run an Indian Facebook group, and I was donated the hulls, so I've made them up as fire ships with the Life of Pi characters, and I think you know.
Yes.
Colin again looks on the villages in the middle ground again, so he's very much the scratch builder. I'm a bit of a lazy Joe. I just do whatever to get the look of the river. Even from here, I think looks stunning. It looks amazing in photographs, and he's he'll tell you himself. But I think tissue paper featured a lot in the making of it. But the colour tones for the river is. I mean, he's done his research. He's another watercolour inspired character.
Okay.
But I mean, if you go to India, the river that's a perfect Indian river.
I'm sure it is. I hope to check it out one day myself. The miniatures themselves, are they from a range of different manufacturers?
Yeah, I mean, I think the lion's share of these are probably Empress and Iron Duke, as was. Well, now all Empress, actually. But there are certain units not available, and so you either fall back and maybe use some older foundry ones. So there's, they're about. And if not, conversions. So I think I've got some Mexican females down here, but they look very on point for Indian civilians, for example. But yeah, I would say largely Empress. It's a lovely range, bit incompleted places, but I'm sure now Paul's got full rights. That may well change. For Mutiny, I don't think you need to go. But the nice thing about the irregular cavalry units, which are, I mean, they call them irregular, but they actually function as regular cavalry. You've got multiple uses there: First Afghan War, Anglo-Sikh Wars, Indian Mutiny later. They're the same figures, and you can get lots of use out of those.
Yeah, always good. Always a tick for a war game of that, isn't it? Multi-period use. Right. Okay. Well, you better get back to it. Thanks very much for taking us on a tour of the table.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Hello, right, here we are with our third and final game in the Wargames Illustrated room at Britcon 2024. It's another Valour and Fortitude game, because that's all we're doing here today, and it's a Napoleonic one, and Peter's going to tell us a bit about it, aren't you? So, first of all, your club, the South East Scotland...
South East Scotland Wargames Club.
Okay, right.
Which is in Edinburgh.
Yeah. Okay, so you've come all the long way down through the horrendous traffic.
Bad traffic yesterday.
To get to Nottingham to play this splendid-looking Napoleonic game. One of the reasons we invited you was shamelessly because you did win an award at Salute this year, didn't you? For best historical game?
Best historical 28mm game, yes.
Right, and there's no wonder why, because there's some fabulous-looking figures on the table. But before we get to that, just tell us a bit about the battle you're recreating or making up.
Yes, so it's the same game that we did at Salute with one or two little twists. So what we did, we didn't want to do Waterloo because we didn't have enough figures to do Waterloo, and everyone does Waterloo. Mm-hmm. So we've made up this game, the Battle of Nivelles, and the theory is that the night before the battle at Waterloo, Napoleon had a brainwave because he wasn't really on his game at Waterloo. But he suddenly thought, why don't I do some manoeuvre, which is what he was famous for. So he detaches a corps and marches it in a route march round what would be the right flank of the British at Waterloo. And he takes a whole corps so he can flank them. And he thinks either he'll surprise the British with the attack, or the British will see it coming and they'll pull back to Hal, which increases the separation from the Prussians. So either of those is a win for Napoleon. But Wellington is wise to it, so he detaches a corps of allies, and they get to Nivelles first and deploy forward in these positions that you'll be able to see shortly. So now we've got a battle with roughly equal forces, but the French have got their reinforcements on first, so they've got the upper hand at the start of the battle, and they're pushing forward. And if the French win this, they'll come round on the flank of the Allies at Waterloo. If they lose it or it's a draw, Napoleon will have held them off, and Waterloo will happen, but each side will have less troops to fight it. So that's the reason. And I think if Napoleon had been on his game, I think this is what he might have done, because that's what he was famous for. So.
Okay, right. Well, great in theory. How's it going in practice at the moment?
It's going well for the French. So what's happened is the French have burst into this feature in the middle of the board. Now, under the Valour Fortitude rules, you can split towns up to different defendable areas. So that's a 2 defendable area town. So the French have taken the first part, but they got thrown out on a counter-attack. They then attacked again and got back in. So it's a bit of a slugfest in there. But they've got the first part of it, and that British brigade is now suffering quite badly because they've lost 3 units. And the old guard have just appeared at the back of the French line. There's 5 battalions of grenadiers and chasseurs coming on. So they've got a huge attack massing now in the centre of the board. But the British Guards are about to appear as well to bolster the British. The British are also going to get the Union Brigade is going to appear next turn. And the French, the turn after that, will get half of Kellerman's Heavy Cavalry Corps. So they're coming on with cuirassiers and dragoons. So it's going to get really interesting in the next couple of moves. But it's going for the French, it's going well at the moment. But there's a very strong position in just outside Nivelles here, the British are massing. So.
Right. The figures themselves look great. Are these from various members from the group?
Well, sad to say they're all mine. Oh, no, that's not true. The British Guard Battalion is Peter Martin's. He's brought them down. They're lovely figures. But all the French are Perry miniatures. I have to say that, since the Perrys are standing
yes, yeah, you should, yeah.
And the British are different ones. We've also got some front rank on, because I quite like them for some of the allied figures that they do. The Brunswickers, for example, are all front rank.
Right, well, thanks very much for telling us about the battle. I hope you get on. I think you'll get to a conclusion today, won't you?
We will get to a conclusion. And one other thing I'd like to add is that, as you know, we're doing Jervis's rules, Battle of Fortitude. So for a game of this size, they work perfectly because they're relatively quick play compared to other sets. So it allows us to get through a game, even taking time out talking to people about what we're doing. And I think what we found in our club is they've kind of revitalised some people's love for Napoleonics, because they kind of got fed up with the other rules we used to play, and this has kind of got us going again. So we're very strong.
Well, that's good to know, and it's great to end on a plug. So thanks very much for plugging Valour Fortitude for us. Right, cheers. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
This video has been brought to you by WiPrime, Wargames Illustrated magazine's online members club. View more videos or find out more about WiPrime by following these links.